Ladies and gentlemen, this Red Gaming Titcom video we're going to be discussing Battlefield 4, and DICE have said, and I quote, that making all of the versions on all the platforms the same would be the coward's way out, and they've also said that you should compare it to other games on the same platform, not different versions. So they're already basically bracing themselves for graphical stick. In other words, because they say, well, why is it the version A looks better than version B and version B looks worse than version C? And you get the idea by now. And I'm going to read you out a series of quotes, and this is from executive producer. His name is Patrick Bach, that's B-A-C-H, of course. Where's a good place to start? I imagine here. It's interesting that you bring it up. It gives me flashbacks to Battlefield 3. We had the same problem even back before the next gen of consoles, where we made a game that looked amazing on the PC. The better the PC, the better the game looked. And then you had games that looked amazing on PS3 and 360, but it didn't look as good as the PC, and people kept nagging us about that. It's like you could compare it to other games on the same platform, and people said, okay. But still, why doesn't it look as good as on PC? You don't care about the consoles. Well, we're pushing the hardware as hard as we can, and I'm quite certain we'll get this for the summer as well, because we are pushing the PC, we're pushing the Xbox One, and we're pushing the PS4. And we're also making certain that the Xbox 360 and PS3 software looks amazing. Way better than it did for Battlefield 3. But people will still bring it up. We'll still get the comparison videos where someone, by the way, off topic, of course, at RGT I'll be doing a lot of those, especially for the next generation systems. I'm extremely curious. We'll still get the comparison videos where someone will judge it based on that, rather than comparing it to the games of the platform. You could, and by the way, off topic, just for a second, I will be also doing comparisons of Battlefield 4 versus other titles on the PlayStation 4. For example, I'll be doing it with Killzone and so on as well. I'll also be doing that with, say, Battlefield 4 versus Crysis and so on the PC, and much more besides. I have a lot planned, don't worry guys. Where someone will judge it based on that rather than comparing it to other games on the platform. You could take the coward's way out. You could just set the bar at Xbox 360 and PS3 and make it so all games look the same on all the platforms, but that's just not who we are. We want to do the best we can with the hardware. Now what we do know, out of quote for a second, is that the Xbox 360 version, for example, has a 2 gig mandatory install. And it could go all the way up to 12.4 gigs, depending on whether you want both the single and multiplayer titles side of the content installed. We don't know about the Xbox One version yet. We know that the PC, for example, is going to have huge installs, and on top of that, of course it's going to require quite a beefy system. 6 gigabytes of RAM is highly recommended, and a high-end GPU. Nvidia have already started to show off the game running in a 4K resolution, and of course they've already started to market the game with multiple GPUs in mind. DICE have already stated that they believe that the game, is going to look better on the PC, but you know, that's to be expected. And here's the thing, people get really upset over this stuff. I mean, really upset. I understand. I mean, let's be honest. If you're an Xbox 360 owner, you cannot get upset that the game looks better, that looks worse than the Xbox One. It's just, you know, come on now. That's just being silly. But people will get extremely upset if, for example, the PS4 version looks better than the Xbox One, or vice versa, because people will immediately start crying favoritism, and it's not really fair on the developers. The bottom line is, some companies, they do go out and they just don't want to even enter into that argument. They'll make the game look pretty identical for both platforms. They'll generally go with the common denominator, and they might at best improve the texture quality for the stronger system. And we got that a lot, by the way, for PC ports. We would get like a high resolution textures, and the models and so on were pretty much identical, maybe slightly better, higher resolution shadows, that type of thing. There were some developers, of course, who did push the envelope, and those developers I extremely respect. To be fair, Ubisoft do a pretty good job, for example, on ports, and obviously DICE with Battlefield and so on and so on. Even Call of Duty Ghosts, we know that it's going to have a huge install. I'm sure that's like 50 gigs, and that's because of the massive textures that are apparently going to be part of the next Call of Duty. Personally speaking, I actually don't mind discrepancies between the two versions, or 3 or 4 or 5 versions, whatever it ends up being. Because, you know what, the bottom line is, it to me shows that, well, they're trying their best. And I know that sounds really kind of a cop-out to say, but okay, I admit I am primarily a PC gamer, but still, I expect, the consoles to also have versions which look better. That's just the nature of it. For example, the previous generation, I do own an Xbox 360, but I primarily, just because my friends mostly had PlayStations, I primarily played on the PlayStation 3. And the PS3 versions of the game typically were slightly worse looking than Xbox 360, just because of how the system was put together. It was a nightmare for developers to try and utilize all of the available hardware, and even so, it had problems with memory bandwidth and a slightly weaker GPU. That's just how it went, unfortunately. And I respect them for pushing it to its absolute limit. I'm sure there will be tons of people who get pissed off. I'm sure there'll be, Bob complains because his friend Tom, is playing it at a high resolution, and of course there are going to be issues with internal render resolution. Still not exactly sure what the game's run at. There's been some controversy surrounding that, primarily because people have started to state that, well, you know what, the Xbox 360 version and PS3 version, of course, we expect to run at sub 720p or 720p at most, but people really wanted the Xbox One and PS4 to be running natively in 1080p, and of course, some rumours and comments have already stated that it's probably going to be running at 900p on the Xbox One, but they're aiming for 60 frames per second, which of course is pretty much the golden target, especially for multiplayer FPS anyway, at least in my personal opinion. So I guess we're just going to have to see. I am pretty confident in DICE, though they are a very good developer. I'm not saying, obviously, that they're the best developer in the world or anything. Obviously, they are one of the more skilled, however, and I respect them for trying to get the most out of the title they can. To be fair, I also respect Infinity Ward as well, and of course Activision, for trying to do the best they can with Call of Duty Ghosts. And I'm actually quite looking forward to both of these titles. I will be doing, of course, a lot of gameplay on both of those as well. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the relatively short video. I say relatively short, well, it is for me. I'm sure some of you regular viewers know that I tend to be releasing videos 2 or 3 times this length typically, but anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed it. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.